looks like no one here. We're commiserating in this little room here. So the amount of time that work takes, and that, again, the psychological demands come into play here, is a very big factor in our ability to maintain our well-being, sustain our growth and development. If you have read that book, Covey's book, 7 Habits of Effective People, and they say you have to renew yourself. Sometimes you can't renew yourself, right? So one of the things that happen is, and I was talking with Angela about this today, is the blurring of the boundaries between your personal sphere, your personal life, and your work life. And willingly or unwillingly, we sort of go in that direction. So poor Angela, who now has a BlackBerry, is sort of experiencing what that means, right? It gets blurry. Others, willingly, like my loving husband, goes and buys an iPhone so he can really be connected. Of course, he bought me one too, so we're... So those are the kinds of things with technology that are challenging, especially in the kind of level that you find yourselves in your jobs, where this blurring of lines is happening more and more. So where in the past people would say, these are my work hours, it's not clear that you can still sustain that argument that these are, I work from 9 to 5. Either because sometimes you're asked to stay, or you feel obligated to stay longer, or because they ask you to work anywhere you are. You can be in vacation with the little folder in your bag. So the guy in the Caribbean over there in that picture could be somewhere with their work. Now the other piece of this is how it interferes with other demands that you may have, because your life is not just the employee or the worker or the supervisor. You have other, hopefully, parts of your life that are important to you. And if these are personal family demands, this time really conflicts with that. So we have issues of energy, that energy depletion that affects your personal and family life, but we also have that time issue, that time conflict. Because we don't have those time machines yet from those TV science fiction shows where you can just beam me up and I'm in 2 seconds in my kid's soccer game, that kind of stuff. I don't have children yet, but these are the stories I hear in the focus groups I did. Women feel very, very guilty. And it's a common thread. I don't know if Dion remembers this, that guilt trip that they feel because they miss the game or the recital or the play or little things that children, you know how in schools they keep those children busy, and after school activities. And either the father or the mother or the parents of this child, they can't be there. So they get there late, and then the child has a little face, and the parent is, feeling bad. So then how do they manage this work life in which they want to have satisfaction from their work life in addition to satisfaction from their family life? But they are finding these two words colliding. It's almost as if the work is not making it possible for them to try to sustain those things they want from their work, family life. And we'll talk about that a little more in a moment. Because I want to move to those race stressors. And our colleague here back there was talking about that a moment ago. So one of the work stressors I looked at in some of this data is the issue of diversity. And the way this was asked in the particular study I'm going to refer to was people of your same ethnic group. So it's not just people of color, but people of your ethnic group. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what other research has found in the past. There is the term called tokenism. Have you ever heard this one? Like, are you a token? Okay. So with tokenism, what comes from that is people try to quantify. In psychology, we love numbers, but can we transfer that concept into a number? So this is what they found. That when you have 15% or fewer of your coworkers that are sort of like you feel like a token. You feel so aware of your group, whatever that group is, African American, Puerto Rican, Ecuadorian, Caribbean, that becomes very clear in your mind. And And what that does, not only that we're self-aware, they have actually found that those individuals are getting lower ratings in performance evaluations. So it's not just all in their heads. There is something happening in these workplaces. The other thing that happens is that they seem to be excluded from some of the networks form, and people go out and do things. We have heard this about women in workplaces where men dominate, right? So it's not as comfortable for women to go hang out at the bar necessarily, or they may not be comfortable or invited even to go play golf. I don't know if New York City, do your corporations go play golf? I don't know what the situation is here, but in other areas that's a big thing, and they get excluded. So tokenism has this negative impact on people, according to past research. Then there's this concept, critical mass. What is a critical mass? They have quantified as anywhere beyond that 15% to 50%, where your coworkers that you feel are like you create a critical mass. So you no longer will feel like a token in a situation like that. And apparently this is the kind of situation that will incite more social interaction, more, communication, and less conflict between people. And you would have a third scenario, which is the scenario that we often find in these situations in which we have low-wage work, which is the ethnic, and I put quotes under minority, because numerically they're not a minority. We're talking about over 50% of the work group or the workplace being of this particular ethnic group. And what research has found is the poor environment in which that work happens. Now, remember that this work is being done with usually low-wage work. So it doesn't mean that in a corporation that is, let's say, a media mogul and almost all of the people there are Latinos or blacks, they will have a poor working environment. You see what I mean? We have this scarcity of research that really covers the diversity within our groups. So sometimes the research is concentrated either when it's about economics or this kind of thing, where are the people with the low-wage work, to think of ethnic minority concentration. So we see poor environments because they haven't looked at big corporations that are trying to also be minority-owned or Black or Latino-owned. Now, in addition to diversity, this issue of who is around you is the issue of prejudice. And when I'm thinking of prejudice here, and I'm borrowing here from previous psychologists and from my advisor from NYU, Diane Hughes, is this idea of what do you think they think of you? So we can get here into one of those Seinfeld's line of, do you think, I think? They think something about your group. That's what you think. And sometimes you don't think it because you imagine it, but because you may hear them say things. Jokes, for instance. They make statements that reveal assumptions that people may be making about your group, and that lets you feel that there is a prejudice at hand in your supervisors, co-workers. Then there's the issue of discrimination. And in this one, we're making a distinction by trying to think more at the institutional level. What is happening with practices at that workplace? Are you getting the same level of assignment so that you can go up on your career ladder? You're not. Okay. We'll do a little opera moment here. So what's happening?